Dramatic days of diplomacy with an end of the war in Lebanon hanging in the balance. U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein extended his visit to Beirut on Thursday, saying he is trying to finalize ceasefire details. He is now scheduled to arrive in Israel tonight. After meetings in the Lebanese capital on Tuesday, he said there is a real opportunity to end the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
U.S. Envoy Amos Hochstein met Speaker Nabi Berri and discussed the Lebanese response to Washington's ceasefire proposal. Hezbollah reportedly has reservations, and it's unclear whether an agreement is within reach or still far apart. Hochstein indicated that gaps between the sides have been significantly narrowed.
Today we've had just now very constructive talks with Speaker Berri, and we have continued to narrow the gaps through the discussions over the last few weeks, and specifically today we continued to significantly narrow the gaps. This is a moment of decision-making. I'm here in Beirut to facilitate that decision, but it's ultimately the decision of the parties to reach a conclusion to this conflict. It is now within our grasp.
The ceasefire deal reportedly requires Hezbollah to withdraw north beyond the Litani, the deployment of Lebanese forces, and an international monitoring group. There are reported objections to Israeli insistence on the right to respond to Hezbollah violations. The State Department said that President Biden is fully involved to ensure the ceasefire deal is reached.
We're going to continue to talk to the parties to try to get an agreement. There are a number of issues. The United States, yeah. Amos, the special envoy, is the lead negotiator. But then the president has been involved at various times. The secretary has been involved at various times, and it'll continue to be an across the government focus to try and reach a diplomatic resolution, because it's critical to getting people back to their homes on both sides of the blue line.
Before sending Hochstein to Beirut, the Biden administration had indicated he would not make the trip unless it was to finalize the deal. It remains to be seen whether that is truly the case. Meanwhile, the war in Lebanon continues. Airstrikes continue against Hezbollah targets in central and southern Beirut. There were also strikes in Nabatea and numerous locations in South Lebanon. IDF ground forces have now advanced up to 6 kilometers into South Lebanon. The IDF's 98th Division has begun operations in new areas. The division, along with the Paratrooper Brigade and the 7th Armored Brigade, is working to locate and destroy Hezbollah infrastructure that threatens the Kiryat Shmona area. Dozens of military targets and warehouses were attacked. An IDF reservist was killed in the fighting. The slain soldier was named as Sergeant First Class Reserve Omer Moshe Gelder, age 30, of the Golani Brigade's logistic unit from Jerusalem.
And a ceasefire may or may not come, but in the meantime, incoming Hezbollah rocket and UAV fire is continuing to target northern Israel. This morning, the Air Force conducted a 30-minute search of 3 UAVs that set off sirens in the western Galilee, the upper Galilee, and Haifa Bay. Interception attempts were made, but crashes were detected in the western Galilee without causing injuries. Over the past 24 hours, dozens of rockets targeted northern Israel, and several injuries were reported, mostly from shattering glass after impacts. Carmiel took the brunt of the impacts. And joining us now with more on the potential for a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon is Israel-Lebanon analyst and public diplomacy expert joining us from the Israeli Citizen Spokesman's office, Jonathan El-Khoury. Jonathan, great to have you on.
Thank you very much for having me, Lital.
So let's start with Amos Hochstein's visit in Beirut and now coming to Jerusalem. He recently said that he would not come back to the Middle East unless it were to sign a deal. Do you think his presence now indicates that a deal truly is imminent?
Yeah, well, Amos Hochstein said that he wants to see a positive side within Lebanon for a ceasefire, for something that will be able to have some sort of a deal between Israel and Hezbollah. And that's something that shows me that at the end of the day, the pressure that is being held on Lebanon is really working, because it says that Lebanon really wants to have a ceasefire in order to end this. But at the end of the day, there are still few obstacles to that from the Hezbollah side. Hezbollah and now the representative of Hezbollah in the parliament, Nabih Berri, that is basically the head of the parliament and the one that is representing both Hezbollah and the Lebanese government, said that they will not agree for Israel to have any future you could say actions inside of Lebanon if Hezbollah start to regain back their power. And this is something that I believe Israel can't agree to. But it looks like by the people talking in Lebanon that it's going for a positive way.
And the situation in Lebanon is very complex. You know, there are many different groups. Can you maybe break it down for us? Who's in favor of a ceasefire? Who's opposed? Can you break it down for us?
Yeah, of course. Well, everyone in Lebanon are interested in having a ceasefire, but the question is what that ceasefire would lead to. Would it lead for Hezbollah to be able to regain back their capabilities, to rearm, to establish themselves again by the Israeli border, and then launch another operation or a war like they did on October 8, 2023, and lead Lebanon to another war that has nothing to do with Lebanon? Or to have a ceasefire that would lead for Hezbollah to be dismantled from their weapons. And this is what I'm seeing in the latest few days, that the majority of the Lebanese, you can say, unlike 2006, are not interested in having Hezbollah holding their weapons anymore, because Hezbollah told them for years that Hezbollah is the one that's responsible for having Lebanon being safe, that Hezbollah is the one responsible for preventing Israel from infiltrating Lebanon, that Hezbollah is the one protecting the Lebanese people. And now the majority of people in Lebanon are saying Hezbollah's weapons were the one that led us to war, and they don't want them to have that weapons anymore. It's a huge chaos now inside of Lebanon. There's a lot of also fear from the day after that Hezbollah supporters could retaliate against the Lebanese people because they have spoken against them for so long, since the beginning, you can say, of the war.
So you really are seeing now a shift in sort of the views of the Lebanese people themselves, because, you know, we heard here in Israel that they were very supportive of the terror group. Now you're saying that's not the case?
Yeah, exactly. There's a huge shift because they understand that at the end of the day, Hezbollah's weapons wasn't there just to protect Lebanon, but they were there to be leverage for the Islamic Republic of Iran in order to use Lebanon against Lebanese will to do whatever the Islamic Republic wants to achieve in front of the US or in front of Israel. And that's something that a lot of Lebanese now are opposing. They don't want the Islamic Republic of Iran's input to continue and control Lebanon. We can see that there's also a change in Lebanese politicians' talks towards the terrorist organization. You can see Najib Mikati, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, saying that not just that they want to amplify Resolution 1701 on all of its aspects, that means not just to push Hezbollah northern than the Litani River, but also to dismantle Hezbollah from their weapons in all of Lebanon. And this is something that also Nabih Berri's, the head of the parliament's deputy, said in Amal, that this is the Shia political party in Lebanon, that they said that they want to amplify or wants to make sure that 1701 and all of its, you can say, reforms are being amplified inside of Lebanon. And this is something that also adds up to Najib Mikati's statements against the Islamic Republic of Iran, where he told the head of the parliament of the Islamic Republic's regime that they need to stop interfering in Lebanese interests and in Lebanese politics.
Mm-hmm. So really a major shift. And I want to ask, you know, from your understanding of sort of the internal Lebanese affairs, what do you think is likely to happen the day after a ceasefire? You mentioned the day after. You know, do you feel that we're going to see real change in Lebanon, or will Iran once again exert its influence and try to hijack Lebanon yet again?
This is what I'm really hoping for, to be honest. I really hope to see a wider change and shift inside of Lebanon towards Hezbollah that at the end of the day led Lebanon to a huge destruction. But this is something that also is important to note, because although there's a lot of people that they're afraid on the day after when the ceasefire would happen, that Hezbollah's weapons that were directed towards Israel will now be directed against their opposition inside of Lebanon. But I do see that there's a lot of you can say positive change from Lebanon to make sure that the Lebanese military would be the one in charge on the border and basically all across of Lebanon. This is something that we heard numerous times by the Lebanese people and also by Lebanese politicians. And I really hope that by helping with an international force, that the Lebanese military would be able to actually uphold these positions that now are currently being held by Hezbollah. And this is something that I know I've spoken to so many Lebanese friends in the last few months. A lot of them are saying that Lebanon is now in a situation of somewhat of a cold civil war that they're hoping will not be led to much more of a wider spectrum, or that it wouldn't be spreading all across of Lebanon, that they will be able, if to be honest, they want Israel to finish the job. They want to make sure that Israel hurts Hezbollah that much, or maybe Hezbollah's arsenal that much, that they wouldn't be able to turn that weapons against the Lebanese people. This is basically what a lot of Lebanese are wanting today.
So a little bit of optimism, perhaps. Jonathan, thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you very much.
And day 411 of the war in Gaza, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Katz stood together on the Netzarim crossing and declared that Hamas would no longer rule. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz reports.
Not quite a declaration of victory, yet Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Katz were able to stand on the Gaza beach at the Netzarim crossing and declare that Hamas rule in the enclave is over.
אני נמצא כאן בחוף הים של עזה עם שר הביטחון, הרמטכ"ל, ראש השב"כ, עם מפקדינו וחיילינו הגיבורים שעושים כאן עבודה נפלאה, פה במרכז הרצועה, בכל חלקי הרצועה. הם השיגו תוצאות מצוינות ביעד החשוב שלנו. החמאס לא ישלוט בעזה. אנחנו מחסלים את היכולות הצבאיות שלו בצורה מרשימה מאוד. אנחנו עוברים ליכולות השלטוניות שלו, ועוד היד נטויה. החמאס לא יהיה בעזה.
Seeming to reject the notion of a ceasefire for hostage agreement with Hamas, Netanyahu said the IDF will be relentless in efforts to bring the hostages home.
אנחנו גם עושים מאמץ מהמקום הזה בכל מקום לאתר את חטופינו ולהשיב אותם. אנחנו לא מרפים מזה, ואנחנו נמשיך לעשות את זה עד שנשיג את כולם, החיים והחללים גם יחד. ואני רוצה לומר לאלה שמחזיקים את החטופים שלנו, מי שיעז לפגוע בחטופינו, דמו בראשו. אנחנו נרדוף אתכם, ואנחנו נשיג אתכם.
According to reports in the Israeli media, Israel is moving toward a new strategy in Gaza. Recent fighting has focused in Jabalia and northern Gaza, with much of the area emptied of the civilian population, with fighting continuing against remaining Hamas remnants. According to Ynet, the situation on the ground will now allow the security establishment to actively work with external companies that will handle all humanitarian aid issues in the Gaza Strip under Israeli supervision. The IDF today announced that Sergeant Major Reserve Roy Sasson, aged 21, from Mevaseret, fell in combat in the northern Gaza Strip. He was the 800th IDF soldier to fall since the start of the Gaza war last October 7th.
And moving on, with anti-Semitism rising globally since the onset of the war against Hamas, Jews in the diaspora have faced significant challenges. The World Jewish Congress has worked tirelessly to ensure Jewish communities worldwide have felt supported and strengthened during these unprecedented times. Here to speak with me now are two Jewish individuals from Spain to tell me more about their experiences. Erica and Carolina, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to start by getting a feeling for how the situation is in Spain at this time. You know, I know there's been a big surge in anti-Semitism. Erica, can you describe what it's like for you on the ground?
Yeah, so as a student and also as a young Jew in Spain, we've been feeling a lot of anti-Semitism coming from both the government and the society itself that surrounds us. A lot of my friends and I have been faced with anti-Semitic rhetoric from both sides, both the far right and the far left. The government, who is also more left-leaning, has shown a lot of pro-Palestinian politics, such as allowing the 7th of October be a celebration this year. So yeah, the feeling is not great, but we are trying to counteract it with both informing people about the situation in Israel as well as the Jewish community and how we are feeling.
And Carolina, you've worked with the Jewish community for a long time in your role for the WJC. Can you give me some examples of the way that that's shifted since the war in order to be able to help support the community during such a difficult time?
Well, first of all, thank you for this interview. And I must say that the Jewish community in Spain is not a large community. It's a community that we are dealing with a lot of things, with inner things in the communities. Also, this different situation since the 7th of October is, of course, completely changed our agenda as everyone's agenda. So we are doing a lot. We are trying to work with the government, with not only the presidency, but also with the different kinds of ministers to work and to develop plans to protect the Jewish people, and also try to understand, to make understand the society how is the position and also the real situation in Israel.
Are either of you afraid to live in Spain during a time like this? I mean, maybe each of you can react. Erica, why don't we start with you?
I mean, I personally am not afraid to live, but I am a little bit skeptical or afraid to show that I am Jewish and show that I am Israeli openly. There have been a lot of incidents with my friends where they shown that they are Israeli or that they are Jewish, and they have been faced with almost aggression or even aggression at some certain points. I actually just had an incident where yesterday my friends got their mezuzah ripped off from their door in Madrid. So yeah, there is this sort of fear of showing openly that you're Israeli or Jewish, but at the same time, it's not stopping us from moving forward and trying to educate the people so that we can live openly within our society.
And Carolina, can you give us an example of how you celebrate Jewish life in Spain?
How we celebrate? First of all, being Jewish openly. I think regarding the previous question, it's a personal issue, but I'm not afraid to tell anyone that I'm Jewish. I give a lot of lectures in Spain to a non-Jewish people regarding about the Judaism, about the Jewish life, about the history, about the present, about Israel also. So I'm not afraid, and that's the first thing we must show from the Jewish communities. And the second is that Spain, it has a history, a particular history that we have to take in care. It's not suddenly that we have some anti-Semitism, but we have an history and a political issue. So our task is to tell people and to build bridges to reach everybody and try to explain. That's our task from the Jewish Federation, from the Federation of Jewish Communities in Spain. That's our task. And we're still doing, for example, Hanukkah in the street.
And I want to ask a final question, which is regarding the World Jewish Congress. You're doing incredible work there on the ground. How can the rest of the world get involved and be supportive of the things that you're doing in Spain?
So from a young Jew perspective, I think that a lot of things that would be great would be to join more international events, for example, or people to come to our national events that we organize in Spain. We have yearly events where we go on retreats. All the young Jewish people in Spain go on retreats. We also have different types of celebrations where everybody's welcome to join. I think it would just be nice to show support for your, friends and family in Spain, because we're all a big family, as we know. And also maybe whenever there's these events, such as JNF, try to have a more international perspective. I feel like this is very, very centered around American Judaism, which is great because it's huge. But at the same time, a lot of organizations maybe should focus on growing in countries like Spain, where their support is, much appreciated, really.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Israel's economy faces significant challenges after a year of conflict, with recent credit rating drops and many high-tech professionals serving in the reserves. Yet there may be a silver lining, a chance to turn these challenges into an opportunity for growth. Last month, ILTV held a virtual event with Afeka Academic College of Engineering, where leading economist Professor Manuel Trachtenberg shared his optimistic vision for Israel's economic future.
I think that it's a cliche to say that every crisis is an opportunity. By the way, that's not necessarily true. I mean, you have to work hard to turn the crisis into an opportunity. But in terms of, in Israel, we were discussing, in any case, what's the next stage for Israel? Because the kind of startup nation model that had been so successful, in a way, is running out of steam. Meaning by that it's more of the same, has been more of the same for a while, and it has proliferated in the world. So we are no longer, the kind of just a handful of countries or regions with those incredible capabilities. So we need to reinvent ourselves. And this is a good opportunity to do that. And I was saying before, to expand the reach and the scope of the so-called high-tech to many more areas and sectors in the population in the country. And when you do that, then you diversify the nature of high-tech. And that's what's needed, particularly given the big challenges that the global challenges of climate change, food security, water, and so forth. And in all these fields, Israel can play a very significant role.
And since the beginning of the ongoing war, multiple airlines have suspended their flights to and from Israel, making travel in and out of the country challenging and very expensive. Well, now 2 Israeli airlines have an announcement that will ease this. ILTV's Arkia and Israir has more.
In the aftermath of the war, Israel's skies have seen dramatic changes as major airlines have halted operations to and from the country. However, relief is on the horizon for travelers to the US as 2 Israeli airlines are stepping in to bridge the gap. Take a look. It's been a challenging time for air travel in and out of Israel. Due to the ongoing war and escalations in the north, major carriers like Lufthansa, Air France, Virgin Atlantic and United Airlines have suspended their flights to Tel Aviv, leaving Israeli airline El Al as the sole operator connecting Israel to the United States. This monopoly has caused flight prices to skyrocket, making travel a luxury few can afford. But there's hope on the horizon. In a move aimed at easing costs and increasing connectivity, Arkia and Israir have received government approval to begin flights to the United States in the coming weeks. The 2 carriers plan to lease aircraft from Europe and operate 10 weekly flights, staffed by foreign crews. Their entry into the US route will bring much-needed competition and could lower fares for passengers. Meanwhile, the list of suspended flights continues to grow. Airlines like Air France, British Airways and American Airlines have pushed their return dates to late 2025, citing operational challenges and security concerns. With Arkia and Israir stepping up, Israeli travellers to the US can finally look forward to more options and hopefully more affordable tickets. Arkia and Israir's first flights to the US are expected to launch soon, signalling a small but important win for Israeli aviation during turbulent times. Back to you, Ladar.
Thanks, Ariella. And today marks 1,001 days to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Last night, the Tel Aviv municipality was illuminated in blue and yellow in solidarity with Ukraine to mark 1,000 days of the war. 1,001 days. Unbelievable and so much innocent loss of life. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly cloudy skies are expected tonight around the country with temperatures reaching lows of around 12 degrees Celsius or 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, mostly cloudy skies are expected alongside warm temperatures reaching highs of about 22 degrees Celsius or 73 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Ladar Gravelazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.